Bob Iger was back at Disney headquarters for the first time on Monday, and on that day, he also held a town hall for cast members. In it, he spoke on a number of issues that were front and center on the minds of cast members and Disney fans. The reservation system, the hiring freeze, Lake Nona, Reedy Creek, Disney Plus, and more. And we're going to cover all of that next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked, and yes, we are still talking about the return of Bob Iger as Disney's Chief Executive Officer. I suppose we're going to be talking about him for another couple of weeks still. There's new developments happening, but today's development is the private town hall that Bob Iger held on Monday morning with cast members, and in it discussing a number of important topics that are, as I mentioned, front and center in the minds of Disney cast members and Disney guests. We're kind of in the same boat, I feel like, cast members and guests. But as Disney Parks fans, naturally, we want to know what was discussed with regards to the parks. Things like the reservation system, Genie Plus, or annual passes. Now, he didn't mention APs or Genie Plus, not that I could tell, but he did talk about the topic of reservation system did come up. When asked about it, he said that he's never used the reservation system before, doesn't know much about it, and that he and Josh tomorrow need to have a discussion about what they're going to do with the reservation system. Now, first, this is pretty much a non-answer, which is going to become a recurring theme throughout this video. Not that I was expecting him to say anything, not that I was expecting him to come out in front and say, hey, guys, get ready. We're going to get rid of the reservation system right here and now. No, of course not, but still, the answer that he gave wasn't much of an answer either. He said that he's never used it, which I'm pretty sure that's true. I'm sure that he's never used the reservation system, but I'm hoping that he does, because I don't think I'm going out on a limb here when I say that the big-time decision makers at the Disney company probably have no concept whatsoever of what it's like to actually go to Disneyland or to any Disney park as an average Joe. No idea whatsoever, and I sure hope there is I wish there was some way to convince them to just try it. You know what I mean? Just try to make a series of 4 or 5 reservations for really specific days that you really got to go, and not just don't just test it out like you're a software tester, but have a vested interest in how that goes for you and see if you can't get into the park the way you want to, at least at Disneyland. I know it's a little easier at Disney World. That's a topic we're going to get into hopefully in another video about the reservation system at Disney World. But getting reservations at Disneyland is by no means pleasant. Now, I'm sure that's not news to anybody who's watching this video, so you're probably with me on that. As for the conversation that Iger alluded to that he wants to have with Josh tomorrow, I mean, how that goes is as good a guess as any. Personally, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I feel like there is a chance that they might get rid of it, but there's also a chance that they might keep it, but perhaps with some modifications. I don't think it's likely that they just completely obliterate the system, but I do think it's possible that maybe they do. Rumors are that they might, let's say, for example, get rid of the reservation system for single-day ticket holders, people who are buying tickets, or multi-day ticket holders, but keep the reservation system for Magic Keys or annual pass holders at Walt Disney World, if they keep the system at all. Or the other rumor that I've heard is that they might get rid of the limit to the number of reservations you can make. Currently 6 for Inspire and Believe and 2 for Imagine. Both are, I think, reasonable compromises, more so the latter than the former, at least coming from a Magic Key holder's perspective. I don't want anybody to have to make a reservation, so I would glad to see the single-day ticket holders not have to make those. But I would like to see something a little bit more aggressive than that. I would hope for more. But if I had to accept just an unlimited number of reservations, well, I mean, that's not so bad, I guess. The fact that they remain, I just wonder what that would do. Would that actually work? While we're, off the script now, what would happen to the reservation calendar if they got rid of the limits? How many people would just be squatting on dates up and down the calendar? I don't think it could work. I honestly don't. I mean, it seems like it's oh my God. Like how many reservations would you make? Would you book everything? Would you limit yourself, honestly? Would you limit yourself? Would you say, I don't need to go that day? How many people, even with the 6 that they have, camp out on dates that they may or may not go. Honest answers. Anyway, I guess it's way too early for that kind of talk. Way too early for talk about the reservation system going away. Way too early for talk about Genie Plus and annual passes coming back. I feel like those aren't the kind of things they wouldn't say anything to that effect this early on the first day that he's back in the office, unless there was total and unified support or hatred of those systems. The only way that would happen is that everybody says down with Genie Plus and down with a reservation system and up with annual passes. I don't think that's the case. This is a much more nuanced conversation. There are a lot of variables here, and I think that Disney would try to find a compromise as opposed to just completely eliminating any of those programs altogether. Next, Iger was asked about the hiring freeze and whether or not that was still going to happen. This is something that Bob Chapek implemented just before he was let go, and Iger said that he agreed with the decision when it was made by Chapek, and that he's going to keep that policy in effect, as it's probably the prudent thing to do. Disney is not in the best of shape right now, so I feel like it is probably a good idea to limit hiring to just the most important, areas that need hiring, i.e., parks, for example. At least in my opinion, from my perspective. I haven't though seen any sort of reference in that town hall to the rest of what Chapek had implemented early, or I should say last week, before he was let go, the task force that was going to be led by Chapek and McCarthy. Whether or not that is still in play is undetermined. I feel like that is something that he still wants to do, if we assume, as we did previously, that the jobs and the cuts that are going to be happening are mostly in entertainment, and more specifically to Disney Plus. And Iger appears to confirm this somewhat when he talks about one of his top priorities is to make Disney Plus profitable. And he furthered this idea by saying that he wanted to make Disney Plus profitable, not by adding more content or by adding more subscribers, but by simply focusing on making Disney Plus profitable, as is right now. And my assumption is the way you do that is by cutting the margins and limiting overhead. That would be jobs and expenses related to Disney Plus. But I have to, Disney Plus is an Iger thing. He started Disney Plus. That's the reason why he bought Fox, was to help build the library for Disney Plus. So this is not a Chapek thing, Disney Plus, although Chapek made that a priority for the company to make it profitable. Iger is going to do the same thing. Iger is going to try to make this the center of Disney's operations in the future. But I have to wonder, I'm worried about Disney Plus. I'm a little bit worried. I kind of like what Braden at MickeyView said on this topic. Other studios they appear to be kind of pulling back from having large streaming services, opting for, like, for example, Peacock, a smaller, cheaper service where they're not dependent on a constant stream of new content in order to keep subscribers, coming in and keep people staying with the product. Instead, they're licensing their titles out to other streaming services, creating positive revenue while not taking on the added risk and the added expense of maintaining a large, affluent streaming service, the kind that requires a constant supply of new content, i.e. Netflix or Amazon Prime or HBO Max, for example. HBO Max is struggling. Netflix is struggling. Disney Plus is struggling. I don't know how optimistic I would be about Disney Plus as a top-tier service. Chapek alluded to this in that Wall Street Journal, the conference that he spoke at, where he said a lot of really dumb things. But he said he didn't expect most of the streaming services to be around long term, and that he thought that there would be just a few, Disney Plus being one of them. But I even have to wonder how possible that is. I worry. Take a look at Strange World. I know we're getting off on a tangent here. Take a look at Strange World, another example of a Disney animated title that sunk in the box office. You could make the argument that Strange World failed because it doesn't have enough pulling people into the theaters like a Marvel or Star Wars film would. It's not a big enough movie to do that, so people are just gonna, I'll just wait. I'll wait until it's on Disney Plus. I'm already paying, $15 a month for that. I could totally see that being a thing. I can see that being a thing for just about, for most of the Pixar films. What's the last animated film that did well in the theaters? I don't know. You guys tell me. Off the top of my head, standing here riffing, I can't think of it. Anyway, food for thought. Reedy Creek and the subject of Disney's support of the LGBTQ community came up. Actually, I'm not sure which came first, if the topic of Reedy Creek came up first or LGBTQ, and those two things are kind of closely related together. Whichever the case, what is important is that Iger appeared to not hesitate when he reiterated his position that inclusion, acceptance, and tolerance are core values for the Disney company. A direct quote from Iger: "We're not going to make everyone happy all the time, and we're not going to try to. We're certainly not going to lessen our core values in order to make everyone happy all the time." His comments went on to say, and I'm going to try to paraphrase here a little bit, is that essentially Disney's going to try to do what's right. Whatever situations come up, they're going to try to do what's right. Now, we all know that part of Chapek's downfall began when he tried to say that Disney was going to stay out of that sort of conversation, stay out of that sort of political talk, and just let their content do the talking. Then he reversed that decision when he was hit with quite a bit of backlash from Disney cast members. Recall also that Bob Iger spoke at this time. When all this was happening, Iger spoke out on social media saying that Disney had a responsibility to have the backs of their cast members, and that included specifically the LGBTQ community. He's restating that position here, and I expect that he means it. Now, this actually might be a good time to observe that there are some folks out there, influencers, journalists, or just people on social media who said that Chapek was fired and Iger brought on because Disney's woke positions were hurting the company financially. By the way, I use that term, woke. I don't know how else to describe it. That's the language that is being used by those people who are saying it. But it sure seems to me that Bob Iger is more left-leaning than Bob Chapek was, at least when it comes to LGBTQ issues, which, by the way, were at the heart of the conflict between Disney and the state of Florida. In other words, I don't think that there is any chance at all, that Disney brought Iger back because of the so-called go woke, go broke type philosophy. I don't think that is the reason at all. It's the opposite of that, in fact. I think that, if anything, they're going to lean into that a little more. Speaking of Florida and Reedy Creek, that topic came up as well. He said he needs to get caught up on things. Speaking of Reedy Creek, he needs to get caught up on things because that was a situation that developed after he had left the Disney company. That was done on Bob Chapek's watch almost entirely. And while that is a true statement, the idea that Iger doesn't understand Reedy Creek, understand the politics that go with it, or how it affects the Disney company, that's just silly. He was president for this company for, 10 or 15 years. Surely the topic of Reedy Creek came up at some point in his tenure. So he is, I'm sure, fully aware of what Reedy Creek is and what it means and what the associated politics are. If I understand Reedy Creek to the extent that I do, in so much as I don't understand it as well as, let's say, an insider might, but to the extent that I understand Reedy Creek, certainly he's got to have at least that much understanding. He knows. He's just not saying anything. It's just like the reservation system, though. What is it that we were expecting him to say, right? I got this. We're gonna crush the state of Florida and Ron DeSantis. No, that's even more silly. Now, staying in Florida, the topic of Lake Nona also came up. And actually, in something of a surprise to me, he's standing pat on that for right now, at least. That is to say that he hasn't killed the move. It's status quo as of this moment. Having said that, the status quo is that it's delayed until 2026, I think. So it's not like they got anywhere at all. Now, for those who are unaware, the Lake Nona project is a situation where Disney was going to move completely the Imagineering department from Southern California over to Florida, and as part of an $800 million plus campus that they were building out there. It was a very unpopular move because it asked a bunch of Disney cast members to choose to either, from California, move to Florida or quit. Now, if I recall, it was supposed to be darn near done by now, but it's been on pause for a little while for reasons that I'm not fully aware of. I don't know what exactly is the reason. It could be the pushback from cast. I'm not sure. Maybe it wasn't going very well. But the fact that Iger said that he hasn't changed his mind on that, suggests that it's still a possibility. Now, I have a feeling that this conversation might be, it's a little bit more, again, it's another nuanced situation. They haven't even broken ground, as far as I know. They have a dirt lot that is ready to be built on. It's been made ready for construction, but they haven't broken ground on this thing at all. Or it could be, a situation with finances, or it could be a situation with the tax breaks. Part of the reason why they were doing this move was because of the big tax breaks they were going to get from the state of Florida for doing so. But I would have thought that this would be kind of a slam dunk for Iger, irrespective of the tax breaks or anything else like that. He's a California guy, to be sure, and he's also a supporter, a vocal supporter of creatives and their process, and I would think that he would want to make it, put them in a position where they can be the most creative. And I think that many would agree that transplanting them from California to Florida is not good for the creative process. But I'm not sure. We'll see. I think this thing is going to get resolved. This is a situation that I don't think it's going to happen, but it may just take a minute for that to get finalized. And then lastly, and this one is also something of a surprise to me, he commented on the speculation that Apple was going to buy Disney, or that they should buy Disney. And his response was that it was just total speculation. And again, because what else is he going to say? But the fact that he answered that at all is kind of interesting. And I feel like it means something, because Apple buying Disney is not a Disney policy issue. It's not a Chapek issue. It's not something that they have to address, something that Chapek was up to. Well, maybe it is behind the scenes. I don't know. And it has nothing to do with Disney's operation. It is completely separate from all of those things. So why is it being discussed in a town hall? He could have skipped it entirely, but he answered it, and he said it was pure speculation. It's a nothing answer. Or is it? I mean, I think that a sale to Apple is at least up for discussion, and I mean by the Disney company, by Disney executives. Though in the end, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know if it takes two. It takes a buyer and a seller. Well, I guess it doesn't. Apple could just buy up the stock if they got enough sellers. I suppose they could overpay for it, but I'm just not. By the way, they could. Apple could buy Disney with the cash in their couch. Okay, Dave, I don't know what that number is. I forget. It's some ridiculous number. $300 billion, I think, in cash. Disney is valued at $160 billion, I think. So they could literally pay cash for Disney straight up. That's spooky. But anyway, I don't think it's going to happen. Just because I don't want it to happen. I don't want Apple. I want Disney to stay, to whatever degree that it is, being a publicly traded company. I still want Disney to be a Disney company. And with that, let me sum up by saying that I'm not exactly sure why they even held this town hall meeting, because nothing really was said, right? I mean, again, as I've been saying throughout this video, what did we expect? But still, nothing was said. So what was it for? What was the purpose for this? Other than to at least, I guess, say that to put it out there, to get the feeling that Disney's listening to their cast, or just to give sort of a warm fuzzy for cast members to know that they can, quote unquote, speak directly with Chapek in that way. But really, there was no reason for this, especially, the first day back in the office? Kind of an unnecessary thing. Personally, I would have preferred, he just show up and go to work. But since they did do it, I think the one thing, or the only thing that we can discern from this is that presently, right now, Disney is going more or less in the same direction that it was 2 weeks ago. But as for new directions, it's going to be a minute before this thing gets turned around. It's like a giant cruise ship. You can't just pivot one of those things, on a dime. It takes a bit of time and a bit of maneuvering to get one of those things going in a different direction than they were going before, obviously. And Iger's priorities are not in individual issues like the kind that we're worried about: reservation system, Genie Plus, annual passes. He's got a bigger, agenda to look out for. His priority is to restore the brand, restore faith in the Disney company, fix management, which, by the way, he said was his top priority, to create a new executive structure so that by the time he leaves again in 2024, the Disney company will be in a much better position to move forward, to progress in his absence in a way that befits the Disney company. And if we can fix a few things along the way in the process, I think I'd be okay with that. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and then follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And fresh baked. But seriously, that was kind of pointless. I mean, I feel bad. I don't want to like. Iger's back and Chapek's gone. Ding dong, which is dead. I was in that group. I was very excited that Iger was back. I'm an Iger guy. I like Iger. I was not a Chapek guy. I do not like Chapek. So it all sounds like good news to me. Lots of cheering and rejoicing. And I and I don't want to like as soon as one day into his tenure, like, oh my God, Iger, he can't get anything right. So I don't want to be that guy. But I mean, why did we even do that? Why did they do that? Why did they have a town hall meeting if they're not going to say anything? I feel like it's better to not say anything at all. You know what? I'm the guy. I would prefer if you just, instead of talking, and this goes towards, I think, a lot of different aspects in our world. That's me personally. The language that I speak is action. It would be great if people could talk less and act more. I don't know if I'm asking too much. Am I asking too much from the world today? It feels like there's so much of that. It feels like there's so much of the talk. But what are people actually doing? What is actually being done? I don't know. I would hope for less. I don't want to say empty statements because, again, what was the expectation? But those were empty statements. I would like to ask for less of that and just more action. Do the thing. Do something, and then tell us what you did, and then we'll be excited about that. If you want to say something, say the thing that you did. That's all I'm saying, I guess. That's the way I've been. What little what do I want to put it? Time I've spent in leadership positions, particularly speaking with Fresh Baked, I think I can say I try to resist as much as possible in my time on this channel to tell people to have, do videos where I say, hey, here's the thing that we're going to be trying to do in the future kind of thing. I don't want to do that. I want to just do stuff. If I change my mind about what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it. And then you guys can react if you want. You know what I mean? Like maybe you won't even notice. I don't know. But the thing that I fear is saying that I'm going to do a thing and then not do it. And then people are going to like, hey, what's up with that? I don't like that. I don't like that idea. And I don't know if that equates to whatever it is that happened on that town hall. I'm not sure if there's an equivalency there, but just something that came to my head is that I just, when they say things that just don't say, that aren't anything at all, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Pure speculation, he said about Apple. That one is really weird. That's a strange thing. Why did he put that out there? Why did he even answer the comment about Apple, the question about Apple buying Disney? I feel like, I feel like if they were definitely not interested in selling to Apple, he would have said, no, we're not trying to sell it. It's a Disney company. What are you talking about? That's crazy talk. He didn't say that. He just said, that's speculation. Which, if they were talking to Apple, that's what you would say, right? If you were talking to Apple about that being, in the works, you would be saying as much as possible, nothing's going on here, or I should say nothing's going on. Whatever. That's just speculation. But if you weren't, if you were firm, you're dead set on not selling to Apple. That's probably what you would say. That we're not going to sell to Apple. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I do. I don't want it to happen because it would feel weird. And I have my fear is that Apple would spin off. I like that Disney owns, the movies and the Marvel and the Star Wars and the Pixar and the parks and the Disney Plus and all that. I like that it's all under one company. My fear is that Disney might sell off, or I should say Apple, they might sell off parks. What if there was just an owner for parks? Is that good? What if a company just owned the Disney parks and that's all they owned? Would that be better for parks? This brings to mind, you may have heard, and this is a video that I'm going to hope to do here in the near future, You may have heard about Chapek cooking books to move money around to make it look like they were losing. I haven't fully, researched that topic, but it had to do with Disney Plus. But what if they were moving money around to hide losses at Disney parks? Because a lot of what people hate Chapek for are things that he's done to the parks. And what if he wanted to make it look like everything that he was doing was going great? It was going so well. Look at our Disney parks. I don't know. If that were the case, I don't know. I gotta look into that. I gotta research that one a little bit. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I wish we could live in a world where people just did things. They spoke with their actions. I know that's asking a lot because social media and all this and the world we live in, and it's always been this way. But wouldn't it be great if there was more transparency? Wouldn't it be great if people just did things? I live in a fantasy world. But at least you can expect that from me at Fresh Bake. For as long as I can help it, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do things. I'm going to act and do things. Who knows what the rest of the world's going to do? We'll see you next time, guys. Respect.